I really hope that you specifically will believe women when they say that they got hurt.
All right, thanks for joining. Stick around, more Rising coming up next.
Hill's Briahna Joy Gray is a very polarizing icon. While clearly and identifiably a member of the left and the extreme left, her constant assault on Jewish victims of rape are reprehensible. She made this her focal point of her journalism and reporting, if you can call it that. Any data that comes out showing that Jewish victims of rape are, as of the time of this recording, and were assaulted sexually since October 7th is wrong. Why is that her mission? The UN comes out with a report showing, as certain as can be, there's overwhelming evidence of Jewish victims being sexually assaulted. Why does that immediately prompt her to come out with stories of, well, Zaka rescuers said something, and then this was not corroborated, and then how come the Israeli police said so-and-so? I ask Briahna, did you ever come after other victims or alleged victims of sexual assault in this way? I dare any of my viewers to go back and see where her stance was during the Kavanaugh hearings. Do you think Christine Blasey Ford got the same sort of treatment that these Jewish victims are getting? Does she respond to any of the allegations that came out publicly from the hostages that were freed or any of the survivors of the sexual assault that are now being promulgated among social media? Why is it her sole mission to focus and discredit claims of sexual assault from or that was done by Hamas and the Palestinians in Gaza that joined in their attack? The New York Times famously ran a story right around Christmas time, citing reliable proof that they found semen all over survivors. They found genitals blown out as a result of the October 7th attacks. What kind of higher bar does she need? She's questioning the New York Times article. You should question it. You should question everything. But is the scrutiny that she's giving every single report that comes out as showing there's undeniable sexual assault by Hamas towards Jews? Why is it there? Why is the scrutiny so much higher for these victims than any other victim? At first, the New York Times article came out, which was a credible source in the eyes of conventional mainstream media, showing that Jews were sexually assaulted. The UN report then came out, saying there was overwhelming evidence that it did and is still happening. And then you have the survivor stories, all of which had a bullseye on it for her. She came after those stories. If you see any of her other opinion pieces, you also see the lack of nuance that I rail against all the time. She never misses an opportunity to say probable genocide, as the ICJ said. The ICJ said the existence of genocide possibility is still a reality.
But would it be fair to say that the key point that you made your initial order and ruling upon was whether or not there was a plausible case that should be taken on by the court of genocide in the case of Israel's actions in Gaza after October 7, and you quite clearly decided that there was a plausible case. Is it right to say that's at the heart of what you decided?
You know, I'm glad I have a chance to address that, because the court's test for deciding whether to impose measures uses the idea of plausibility, but the test is the plausibility of the rights that are asserted by the applicant, in this case, South Africa. So the court decided that the Palestinians had a plausible right to be protected from genocide, and that South Africa had the right to present that claim in the court. It then looked at the facts as well, but it did not decide, and this is something where I'm correcting what's often said in the media, it didn't decide that the claim of genocide was plausible. It did emphasize in the order that there was a risk of irreparable harm to the Palestinian right to be protected from genocide. But the shorthand that often appears, which is that there's a plausible case of genocide, isn't what the court decided.
But to constantly bring that up, is that her insinuating that she thinks it is, and she's waiting and hoping for the ICJ to let her say it was a genocide? Does every breakdown she posts on The Hill and her podcast have to do with Israel in a bad light because she's trying to present the truth? Or she's trying to present a certain narrative in a certain way just to pander to the leftist point of view, and to get the leftist point of view is to be as anti-Israel as possible? Somebody like Briahna is not a champion of truth. Definitely not a champion of nuance. I wonder if Israel would actually show somebody like Briahna, who has the credentials that she does and the platform she does, would they show her the footage of October 7th that is not open to the public? Would they show her the gruesome imagery that was shown to people like Emily Austin, Dave Rubin, Chris Cuomo, members of the Knesset that had to walk out of the screening just because their emotions couldn't handle it? Briahna, your disparaging of Jewish sexual assault victims above all else is reprehensible. And why are you obsessed with it? Let the stories have the same level of scrutiny as all others. Because all I see whenever anything comes out supporting their story, you immediately work to debunk it. You question it, as you should, equally with other stories. Jewish women are equal. And Briahna Joy Gray is not alone in this. Look at how long it took UN Women to acknowledge and support Jewish women after the attacks on October 7th. Me too, unless you're a Jew. Come on.